The crystal chandeliers suspended high above glimmered like fallen stars, casting their light across the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. Soft jazz melodies mingled with the clinking of champagne flutes and the murmur of laughter. Tonight, New York's elite gathered for the annual charity gala, a stage where elegance, opulence, and displays of power rivaled any Broadway performance. Amid the dazzling crowd, Isabel Robinson felt like a small but resolute spark. She stood in a corner of the room, clutching a glass of champagne, her burgundy gown hugging the curves she had once tried to conceal. Her curly hair was artfully pinned up, revealing a radiant face with smooth brown skin. Her deep black eyes flickered with apprehension and determination. Determination to prove she belonged in this world. Isabel wasn't a distinguished guest. Her invitation came from her best friend Candace, a young journalist with wide connections. Candace believed Isabel needed to see the doors of this world where power and opportunity intertwined. "You have every right to be anywhere," Candace had said when handing her the invitation. Isabel clung to those words even as her heart weighed heavily with unease. She knew no one but Candace, yet she smiled faintly, striving to appear at ease. In truth, Isabel had spent weeks preparing for this night, saving every penny to rent high heels, selecting a second-hand dress tailored to perfection, and practicing her walk to avoid any clumsiness. She wanted to be a confident woman, even though her heart trembled like a leaf in a storm. When Candace approached, trailing a tall man, Isabel instinctively straightened her posture. The man stood out in the crowd, his navy suit impeccably tailored, Italian leather shoes gleaming, and his demeanor commanding. His chiseled features, piercing green eyes, high cheekbones, and a strong jaw exuded an air of authority. A glance told Isabel this was a wealthy man accustomed to bending an entire room to his will. "Isabel, meet Andrew Harris," Candace said with a bright smile. "He's the CEO of Harris Capital, one of Manhattan's most significant investment funds." Andrew gave a slight nod, his eyes briefly scanning Isabel. But instead of offering a handshake, he took a sip of his wine and delivered a quiet yet cutting remark. "You're brave to wear that dress." The comment landed lightly, almost innocently, but his tone and the faint smirk on his lips turned it into a sharp blade. In that moment, Isabel froze. Her heart lurched, as if someone had pushed her off a cliff. Candace frowned, about to interject and diffuse the awkwardness, but Andrew had already turned away, engaging with someone else, as if Isabel wasn't worth another second of his attention. Isabel stood rooted, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Her ears rang. His words were a verdict her body didn't belong in this glittering world, and the confidence she had mustered was nothing but a farce. She forced a smile, swallowing the words she wanted to hurl back. In that room full of dazzling lights, she chose silence. She knew that reacting would only draw every eye to her, making her the subject of mocking whispers. In her small Harlem apartment, Isabel kicked off the heels that had blistered her ankles. The burgundy dress, once a source of pride, now lay draped over a chair, like evidence of her defeat. She sank onto her bed, hands covering her face. Silent tears burned her cheeks. She didn't cry because she believed Andrew was right. She cried out of fear that others in that room might have thought the same, that her entire life would be defined by judgmental gazes never deemed enough. But her hands didn't surrender. She reached for the sketchbook on her bedside table. Under the dim glow of a yellow lamp, sharp pencil strokes filled the blank pages. Bold curves, dresses that celebrated the body rather than hiding it. As rain tapped rhythmically against her window that night, Isabel sketched tirelessly. Each line was a rebellion, and each design declared, "I won't shrink to please you. I won't diminish myself for anyone. I will carve out my own space." The next day, Isabel returned to the fabric store where she worked part-time. The job was grueling, sorting, cutting, advising customers, but she found solace among the rolls of silk, lace, and cotton. They were her inspiration, the raw materials to make her dreams a reality. Up late again. Huh? The shop's owner, a Puerto Rican woman, asked with concern. Isabel only smiled. She didn't share what had happened the night before. Andrew's words were a dirty secret locked away in the deepest corner of her heart. But a spark had ignited in her eyes, a fire of resolve. On the subway ride home that evening, Isabel scrolled through her phone. The gala dominated the news. Glamorous gowns, famous faces, and multi-million-dollar deals sealed behind the scenes. Andrew Harris appeared in photos, his calm face and successful aura suggesting the world was his command. Isabel stared at the screen, her grip tightening. She whispered like a vow, "You may have wealth and power, but you don't get to define me. One day, you'll see me differently." The train's lights flickered through the window, reflecting her face, tired but resolute. Within Isabel, the seed of a new journey had begun to sprout. That gala night didn't just bring pain. It was a catalyst, a turning point. And in that moment of being belittled, Isabel decided to rewrite her life story. Mornings in Harlem always carried a distinct beauty. The streets buzzed with vendors' calls, car horns, and the familiar soul melodies drifting from shop fronts. In a small second-floor apartment in an old building, Isabel sat at a wooden table by the window, where the early sunlight slanted in, illuminating the blank pages before her. On the table lay unfinished sketches from the previous night. Pencil marks smudged in places, some lines drawn in a rush of anger. Beside them, a notebook overflowed with jotted ideas. Isabel's eyes were puffy from a sleepless night, but her gaze held a newfound resolve. She placed her hand on a sketch and whispered to herself, "It's time to turn pain into power." That morning, Isabel took a break from her job at the fabric store to visit the community library. She pored over old books on fashion history and studied designers who had shattered conventions. She meticulously noted every detail, flipping pages, as if devouring an entire world of knowledge. In the library's quiet, she realized something. All the greats shared one trait: they dared to do what others doubted. Coco Chanel had defied the fussy rules of her era's fashion. Alexander McQueen had turned rebellion into art. Why couldn't she? Isabel sat up straighter, taking a deep breath. The seed of an idea for a brand took root, vague but mighty. It wouldn't just be about selling clothes. It would be a voice, a mirror for women like her to see themselves reflected. That afternoon, she returned to the fabric store. The owner, accustomed to Isabel's diligence, eyed her curiously as she bought an assortment of fabrics: soft silk, raw cotton, stretchy budget blends. "What are you doing with all this?" she asked. Isabel only smiled. "I'm experimenting. Something new may come of it." That night, her tiny apartment transformed into a makeshift sewing studio. The old machine's creaky hum blended with the distant sounds of the street. Fabric scraps littered the floor, evidence of a silent battle. She cut, stitched, and adjusted. A needle pricked her finger, drawing blood, but Isabel wiped it away and pressed on. Her first dresses began to take shape on the rack, bold yet straightforward, embracing curves rather than concealing them. Isabel cried when she tried on the first dress and stood before the mirror. Not because it was perfect, but because for the first time, she saw herself as she truly was, strong, confident, existing without anyone's permission. In the following days, Isabel used every spare moment to refine her designs. She enlisted friends, women from the nail salon, the supermarket, and small offices in the neighborhood to try them on. When they twirled in front of the mirror, their eyes lit up, their smiles radiant. Those moments told Isabel she was on the right path. A middle-aged woman teared up as she wore a perfectly fitted dress. "All my life, I never thought I'd find something that makes me feel this beautiful. Her words etched themselves into Isabel's mind, more meaningful than praise. But the road ahead wasn't easy. When she sent her initial designs to small Manhattan boutiques, the responses were dismissive. Too niche. Won't sell. Our customers don't wear this. Isabel closed her phone, her heart sinking. That night she sat at her table, head in her hands, tears falling. But unlike before, she didn't let despair linger. She wiped her eyes, opened her laptop, and created an IR Couture social media account. She posted photos of her friends in her designs, captioning them, "You don't need to change to fit in. Fashion should change to celebrate you." At first, no one noticed a handful of likes, a few encouraging comments. But Isabel persisted. A post every day, an inspiring story every week. She took photos with her old phone, editing them roughly, but the sincerity in her words shone through. One Friday evening, as she prepared to log off, a notification popped up. A freelance stylist had shared her post with the caption, "This is real fashion." Overnight, her followers tripled. Isabel was stunned, her heart racing. Not because of sudden fame, but because she knew the seed was sprouting. The next morning, she stepped outside in her usual jeans and sweater, but felt taller. She smiled at the sunlight, the market calls, and the life that had never been easy. A month later, Isabel pooled her meager savings and a small loan from Candace to produce a mini collection of 5 designs. She had no store, no showroom, just her tiny apartment. But she believed in her vision. Candace gazed at the dresses on the wall, sighing. "Are you sure this is all your money?" Isabel nodded. "If I don't do this now, I'll regret it forever. These aren't just dresses, they're a message." On launch day, she posted all her designs on a free website she'd built. She tempered her expectations. But within hours, a mustard yellow dress was sold to someone in Chicago. Then a wine red dress was shipped to Atlanta. Each ding of an order made Isabel leap like a child receiving a gift. The tears of before became smiles. Late that night, after packing the final order, Isabel sat on her apartment floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes, wrapping paper, and the scent of fresh tape. She looked up at the wall mirror. Gone was the lost girl from the gala. In her place was a woman building her dream from nothing. She whispered, "This is just the beginning." She didn't know what challenges lay ahead. But this time, instead of letting tears drown her, she would let them fuel her journey forward. The first orders brought Isabel an indescribable thrill. But that joy quickly gave way to harsh reality. Everything demanded more than she could manage. Her small Harlem apartment turned into a chaotic warehouse. Cardboard boxes piled up in a corner. The dining table became a cutting station, and the sofa was buried under needles, thread, scissors, and tape. Each morning, Isabel navigated a maze of supplies to move around. When Candace visited, she stepped inside and exclaimed, "Are you living in a textile factory or a slum?" Isabel laughed, but it was tinged with exhaustion. "A slum that can sew is a factory," she quipped. Candace shook her head, but stayed to help stack teetering piles of fabric. The biggest challenge was money. Each order required upfront costs for fabric, thread, and notions. Isabel tried to balance it all, but the cycle of expenses outpaced her earnings. The familiar fabric store let her buy on credit, but that couldn't last forever. After reviewing her books one evening, she dropped her pen in defeat. The numbers didn't lie. Her revenue barely covered utilities, let alone expansion. Propping her chin in her hand, she stared at a poster on the wall, a photo of women wearing her designs during an amateur shoot. Their radiant smiles and confident eyes were a lifeline. She thought, "I couldn't give up if they believe they're beautiful in these dresses." But life didn't lack for discouraging voices. At a chic Soho boutique, Isabel presented her samples. The owner, a platinum-haired woman, glanced at them and smirked. Cute idea, but my customers don't want to see that body type in the mirror. Her words cut deep. Isabel felt heat rush to her face, but held herself together, closed her portfolio, nodded politely, and left. Outside, snow fell lightly. Under the gray sky, the biting wind felt warmer than the coldness within her. She walked on, thinking, I'll build my own if this door closes. On winter nights, the old apartment's heater often failed. Isabel layered on 3 sweaters, her hands in fingerless gloves, and kept sewing. Her breath fogged in the air, but the needle moved steadily. Soft soul music from an old radio kept her company in the lonely hours. Exhausted, she sometimes collapsed onto the floor, falling asleep amid fabric scraps. Morning light through the curtains woke her back aching, but her eyes still burning with resolve. It wasn't just money that tested her. Her self-belief was too. One night, after posting new product photos, she opened her phone to find cruel comments. Is she trying to make obesity fashionable? Ridiculous. Who'd pay for this? Her hands trembled. Her heart stung. The gala night flooded back for a moment. Andrew Harris's mocking laugh. She nearly deleted every post, but then a message appeared. Thank you because of you. I wore a fitted dress for the first time. I feel beautiful. Isabel froze. Tears fell, but they weren't bitter. She whispered, if even one person feels that way, every wound is worth it. To stay inspired, Isabel began hosting free fittings for neighborhood women. She laid an old rug on her apartment floor, set up a full-length mirror, and strung up golden fairy lights. They came shy at first, then beaming as they saw themselves in perfectly fitting dresses. One woman hesitated. I don't look like magazine models. Is this okay for me? Isabel replied instantly. Beauty is when you feel happy in the mirror. No one gets to decide that but you. Those evenings filled the small apartment with laughter. Their confidence fueled Isabel to keep going, but challenges persisted. A shipment got stuck at the post office, sparking customer complaints and negative reviews. Panicked Isabel rushed around apologizing and troubleshooting. When she retrieved the mangled package, she cried right at the counter. Candace hugged her, saying softly, starting a business is never easy. But you chose this path, so see it through. Isabel wiped her tears, clutching the package like a child she needed to protect. She knew each mistake today would be a lesson for tomorrow. That night, she opened her journal, writing shakily. February 12th. Everything's a mess, but I'm still breathing, still working, still dreaming. That's enough to keep going. Those journal pages weren't just a record of her journey. They were a mirror to face her fears and turn them into strength. Spring arrived, and cherry blossoms bloomed along the streets. Isabel prepared her second small collection, choosing vibrant colors and free-spirited designs. She enlisted a young neighborhood photographer for a shoot. The session took place on an old apartment building's rooftop. As the sun set and a breeze lifted the dresses, her non-professional models, neighbors, and friends laughed and chatted. The photos posted that night sparked an overwhelming response, hundreds of shares, thousands of positive comments. Isabel sat at her computer, hands trembling as she typed. She smiled, whispering, finally the work is being seen. But attention brought storms too. A popular fashion blogger wrote a scathing review. This fledgling brand lacks sophistication. Nice idea, but no commercial appeal. The high-end market won't bite. The post spread quickly, fueling doubts. That night, Isabel lay awake wondering, am I on the wrong path? Are they right? Then she remembered the middle-aged woman's sparkling eyes, the young girl's grateful message. She sat up, opened her journal, and wrote, it's not about them being wrong, or me being right. I chose this path for those who've never been seen, and I'll see it through. Those grueling days didn't break her. Instead, they forged her resilience, teaching her that success doesn't come in one night, but from 1,000 days of persistence. A familiar voice echoed within her. If this door closes, build another. And Isabel knew her journey was only beginning. After months of navigating a cluttered apartment filled with fabric and cardboard boxes, Isabel had grown accustomed to the relentless pace. She understood that success wasn't a single leap, but a mosaic of countless small moments. Yet sometimes, life unexpectedly flung open a door she hadn't imagined. One early spring morning, Candace burst in phone in hand, nearly shouting, "Isabel, your post is going viral." Isabel, bewildered, opened her laptop. On the screen, photos from her amateur rooftop shoot in Harlem were popping up across dozens of social media pages. A young lifestyle journalist had shared them with the caption, "Fashion isn't just for one body type. This is proof that confidence is the ultimate weapon." The likes soared and comments stretched endlessly. "This is precisely what we need. I want to order now. Finally, someone who thinks like me." Isabel sat stunned. What started as inspiration for a few friends had sparked a slight online movement. That evening, her phone buzzed non-stop. Orders were poured in from cities beyond New York, Boston, Dallas, and even Toronto, along with emails asking how to buy her designs. Joy came with panic. How could her tiny apartment team keep up? She refused to let customers wait too long, but couldn't sacrifice quality for quantity. Seeing her friend's distress, Candace said firmly, "It's time to think bigger. If you keep struggling alone, you'll miss your chance." Isabel fell silent, a mix of fear and excitement stirring within her. She began reaching out to small workshops on the city's outskirts. Convincing anyone to partner with a fledgling brand wasn't easy. Many dismissed her idea as trendy and fleeting. But then a family-run workshop in Brooklyn, led by a middle-aged couple, agreed to collaborate. "We saw the sincerity in your eyes," the wife said as they shook hands. After countless sleepless nights, Isabel had found allies. The subsequent batches were produced with greater professionalism and polish. Customers were delighted, and glowing reviews flooded in. One sent a photo of her 16-year-old daughter in an Isabel dress, writing, "This is the first time she's smiled in front of a mirror." Isabel clutched her phone, tears streaming down her face. That moment confirmed her work was more than fashion. It was a healing journey for many. The buzz caught the media's eye. A lifestyle magazine reached out for an interview. Wearing a simple white blouse, Isabel sat in a small cafe, recounting her story. When the issue was published, her radiant smile and resolute eyes graced the side cover. The headline read, "Young Designer Challenges. New York Fashion Norms." Candace bought 5 copies, plopping them on the table with a grin. History's been made, and you're part of it. The media attention sparked collaboration offers. A Manhattan boutique emailed proposing to display her designs. Isabel could hardly believe it. The day she delivered her first batch, her hands trembled as she saw IR couture tags gleaming under the store's golden lights. One afternoon, returning to the boutique, she caught sight of young women trying on her dresses, laughing brightly. One said, "Finally something made for us." Isabel stood quietly at the door, overwhelmed with happiness. Every drop of sweat and every tear had led to this moment. But with the spotlight came heavy pressure. Nights were spent calculating costs, planning production, and tackling delayed shipments. Once, a customer lashed out over a late delivery. Isabel promptly sent an apology letter with a discount code. She knew maintaining trust was 100 times harder than creating a product. She learned to step into a leadership role, delegating to her small team, listening to their input, and accepting she couldn't control every detail. Trust, she realized, was part of growing. One late evening, Candace handed her an envelope after the team wrapped up. Inside was an invitation to an independent fashion exhibition in Brooklyn. "This is your shot," Candace said, eyes sparkling. "It's not the most significant event, but it's where legends are born." Isabel held the invitation, her heart racing. Fear and ambition swirled within her. She knew this could be the turning point to lift IR couture beyond her small community onto a larger stage. She sat by her window that night, gazing at the city's twinkling lights. She whispered, "The wave is here. I have to ride it, not let it sweep me away." Her eyes blazed, reflected in the glass like a flame. For the first time, Isabel felt her path had stretched far beyond her initial dreams. The exhibition day arrived faster than Isabel expected. Her team barely had time to breathe. Fabrics, color swatches, model lists, and fitting schedules piled into towering stacks of papers in the already cramped apartment. Candace handled invitations, the tech crew rented extra lights and backdrops, while Isabel spent every last hour perfecting stitches. The night before the show, she sat alone on the floor, surrounded by finished dresses, the desk lamp casting her weary shadow. But within her, a fire blazed. This wasn't just a chance to showcase her work. It was a declaration IR couture was authentic. The exhibition took place in an old warehouse, transformed into an art space. Outside, neon purple and blue lights illuminated the street, drawing crowds. The audience wasn't just young trendsetters, but included journalists, photographers, and seasoned fashion industry figures. Backstage, Isabel's heart raced. The models were dressed, makeup complete, ready to go. The sound system tested pulsing beats, each drum beat signaling the approaching moment of truth. Candace leaned in, whispering, "You've got this. This stage is yours." Isabel smiled, though her hands trembled slightly. When the first lights flared, the runway dazzled amid cheers. Models strode confidently to modern beats. The Free Flow collection had been crafted over months by Isabel and her team. The designs didn't hide flaws, they celebrated every curve and unique trait of the body. The audience watched intently, some filming on their phones. Whispers of admiration and spontaneous applause broke out as a model twirled in a striking high-slit dress. From the wings, Isabel gripped her headset tightly. Each spark in the audience's eyes confirmed she was right. She hadn't created fashion to make women hide, but to let them shine with pride. As the show closed, the room erupted in prolonged applause. The host invited Isabel to the stage. She stepped out in a simple fitted black dress, radiating quiet confidence. Spotlights bathed her, and the crowd stood, some chanting her name. Isabel bowed. It was a moment she'd dreamed of hundreds of times, but tears welled up unbidden when it happened. Backstage afterward, the energy was electric. Journalists lined up for interviews. Photographers requested more shots, and models hugged her, thanking her for outfits that made them feel confident. Amid the chaos, Candace pulled her aside. "Someone wants to meet you." Isabel froze. Before her stood a tall figure in a crisp navy suit, his deep eyes unmistakable. Her heart stopped. Andrew Harris. The man who had mocked her at a lavish gala years ago now stood before her, his gaze no longer cold, but tinged with unease. "Hello, Isabel," he said in a low voice. "It's been a while." The surrounding noise, chatter, camera clicks, faded. Memories flooded Isabel's mind, his cutting words, the sting of humiliation, silent tears in her small apartment. She took a deep breath, holding his gaze. "What do you want here?" Andrew hesitated, clearly aware of her discomfort, but pressing on. "I came to congratulate you. Your collection is awe-inspiring." Isabel's lips curled slightly. "I don't need your compliments." Her words silenced him for a moment. Then he nodded. "I understand. But I need to say, I was wrong." Back then, I was arrogant and thoughtless. My words weren't just rude, they hurt you. I don't expect instant forgiveness, but I want you to know I regret it." Isabel absorbed each word, a storm of emotions rising within her. Part of her wanted to walk away, but another urged her to stay. The man before her seemed different from the haughty figure of that night. In his eyes, she glimpsed sincerity. Candace, sensing the tension, quietly stepped back, leaving them alone. "Is that all you came to say?" Isabel asked, her voice still cool. Andrew sighed. "I also want to learn about your work. I've heard IR Couture is making waves. I'd like to invest." Isabel let out a sharp laugh. "How ironic. You mocked me over a dress, and now you want to invest in the dream you once belittled." Andrew didn't argue. He accepted her sarcasm as deserved. "I know you don't trust me," he said slowly, "but I've changed. I'm not here to buy you off or claim your work. If you allow me, I see the future you're building and want to be part of it." For a moment, Isabel wavered. Her mind split. One half wanted to turn away, pride refusing to forgive. The other saw an opportunity to elevate her brand to new heights. She recalled nights calculating workshop costs, fretting over delayed shipments. A powerful investor could solve many problems. But it was Andrew Harris. She looked up, locking eyes with him. "Do you realize what you're asking? Trust isn't easily rebuilt." Andrew nodded slightly. "I know. And I'm ready to prove it, not with words, but with actions." Candace returned her eyes, questioning. Isabel signaled for her to wait. Turning to Andrew, she said, "I'll consider it, but don't expect a quick answer. If you're serious, let time prove it." A faint smile crossed Andrew's face, free of arrogance, only humility. "That's all I could hope for." He walked away, leaving a trace of his cologne in the air. Isabel stood still, her heart surging like a wave. She had just climbed a new rung in her career, only for fate to confront her with the man who once wounded her deeply. A question echoed in her mind. Was this merely fate's new game, or the start of a different chapter? She had no answers. Only the certainty that from this moment, the road ahead would no longer be calm. After the exhibition, Isabel couldn't stop replaying her encounter with Andrew. Standing in the crowd, with a resolute gaze, his image lingered in her mind. She tried to push it aside to focus on work, but the more she resisted, the stronger her curiosity grew. Seeing her friend's unusual pensiveness, Candace asked, "What will you do about his offer?" Isabel shook her head. "I don't know. Part of me wants to toss it in the trash, but another part can't deny he could help the brand." Candace frowned, then said softly, "Fine, but never let him take control." Isabel fell silent. The warning was like a tether keeping her grounded against temptation. A few days later, a package arrived at the studio. Inside was a neatly printed proposal and a brief, handwritten note. "I know you don't trust my words, so let my actions speak. This is a collaboration proposal. No strings are attached. Please consider it. Andrew Harris." Isabel hesitated, but opened the file. Before her was a meticulous plan down to the numbers, production expansion costs, a list of reputable workshops, and a roadmap to enter the European market within 2 years. Andrew had also included logistics suggestions, addressing a persistent weakness of her brand. What surprised her most was the final line, "Every decision is yours. I'm here to support, not control." She read it repeatedly, her heart racing not from trust, but from the unexpected patience in this man. The next day, Andrew requested a meeting at a small Soho cafe. Gone was the flashy suit. He wore a rolled-up shirt exuding calm. Isabel sat across from him, arms crossed. "I read your plan. It's detailed, but you know I still don't trust you." Andrew nodded, unfazed. I don't expect you to. I want you to see I'm serious. If needed, I'll prove it another way. Another way. Isabel narrowed her eyes. Andrew leaned back, exhaling lightly. Name any condition. I'll follow it as long as I can show I'm not the man I was. His words threw her off. For a moment, she saw he wasn't imposing or justifying. He was humbling himself, waiting for an opportunity. She sipped her coffee, then said coolly, I don't need an investor yet. I need someone who truly understands my products. Come to the studio and work like any employee. No, if you want to start business cards, titles, or privileges. Andrew's eyes lit up with a smile. Then I'll be there whenever you say. 2 days later, he arrived on time. He walked to the small Brooklyn studio without a chauffeur or a fancy car. Candace nearly dropped a fabric box when she saw the famously aloof financier awkwardly carrying heavy rolls of cloth. He actually showed up, Candace whispered. Isabel nodded, still skeptical. Andrew didn't complain. He took notes on processes all day, moved crates, and even labeled packages. His expensive shoes quickly gathered dust, but he didn't care. Watching from afar, Isabel's emotions churned. Part of her wanted to believe he'd changed, but another voice warned, don't soften too soon. That afternoon, as the team left, Andrew stayed behind. He handed Isabel a stack of papers. I recalculated the Chicago shipment logistics. You could save 15% by switching routes. Surprised, she checked his work. It was solid. How long did this take you? She asked. All last night, Andrew replied. There was no boast in his eyes, only sincerity. It unsettled her. Over the following days, Andrew showed up consistently, acting like an intern. He learned to sort fabrics, joined team meetings, and listened to feedback. When he made mistakes like mislabeling a package, he didn't shift blame. He apologized and redid it. Candace's skepticism softened into curiosity. One evening, she whispered to Isabel, maybe, he's trying to prove something. Isabel didn't respond. She watched Andrew wipe down the cutting table, his calm demeanor contrasting with the arrogant man in her memory. One afternoon, Andrew made a surprise proposal after work. Isabel, there's a sustainable brand development seminar this weekend. I got tickets. You should go. If you're okay with it, I'll come along not as an investor, but as a learner. Isabel hesitated. The seminar would draw industry influencers, a great opportunity, but it meant appearing publicly with Andrew. Aren't you worried about rumors? She asked. Andrew shrugged. If it helps your brand get noticed, I'm okay with it. His concise, powerful answer stirred her, though her mind stayed cautious. That weekend they attended the seminar. The venue was elegant with rows of chairs under high ceilings bathed in golden light. As Isabel entered, eyes turned her way. Whispers followed, noting Andrew Harris by her side. Throughout, Andrew didn't steal the spotlight. He sat quietly, taking notes, occasionally asking her opinion. When a young entrepreneur approached, Andrew introduced her. This is Isabel Robinson, founder of IR Couture. She's why I'm here. His words surprised the room. Isabel's heart flickered, sensing a new facet of him. That evening on the way back, Andrew paused before parting. Looking into her eyes, he said warmly, I know my past isn't easily erased, but I want you to understand, I'm not here for a quick redemption. I'm here to stay if you'll let me. Isabel froze. In that moment, the city seemed to hush. The hum of traffic and wind faded. She didn't answer immediately. She gave a slight nod as if to say, keep proving it, Andrew. He smiled, bowed slightly, and walked away, leaving Isabel with a heart in turmoil. A bold proposal had just unfolded. Whether to accept or reject it lay ahead. From that moment, their story had turned to a wholly new chapter. The small Brooklyn studio lost its calm in the days following the seminar. A financial news outlet published a photo of Andrew and Isabel, seated together at the event, with the headline, Tycoon, Andrew Harris, secretly backing rising brand. The article spread rapidly. Some were intrigued, seeing the promising pairing of a renowned financier and a fledgling brand. But others quickly sneered, "She's only successful because a rich man's behind her. Nothing special, just a clever PR stunt." Typical fashion. One powerful name is all it takes to get noticed. Candace, fuming, slammed her phone on the table. "They're erasing all your hard work." Sleepless nights. Blood, sweat, and tears reduced to a romance. Isabel clenched her fists. The venomous words pierced her pride like 1,000 needles. She knew letting emotions take over could ruin everything, but her heart trembled with doubt. Andrew arrived that afternoon with logistics documents. Sensing the tense atmosphere, he noticed Candace's wary glance and Isabel's unusually stern expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice low. Isabel handed him her phone, the article glaring on the screen. "This is what I was afraid of." Andrew skimmed it, then met her eyes. "You know they'll say anything for attention. What matters is that you and I know the truth." Isabel shook her head, her voice catching. "No, Andrew. To them, the truth doesn't matter. They see what they want to see. And now I'm being belittled, as if this success isn't mine." Andrew stepped forward, placing a hand on the table. "I can speak out and set the record straight. I can use my media connections to affirm that IR Couture is your creation, and I'm just a supporter." But Isabel's eyes blazed as she looked at him. "You don't get it. The more you speak, the more they think I'm leaning on you. This fragile trust will shatter with one wrong move." Candace pulled Isabel aside, whispering, "Are you sure you want him to stay? Ever since he showed up, troubles followed." Isabel bit her lip. She knew Candace was only protecting her. Yet part of her acknowledged Andrew's efforts, hauling fabrics, taking notes, offering sound proposals. His actions showed he wasn't just here to polish his image. She replied softly, "Don't make me choose now. I need time." A loyal customer emailed to cancel an order the next day, citing discomfort with the rumors of the romance scandal. It was the last straw. Isabel sank into a chair, hands trembling as she stared at her phone, unable to draft a response. Andrew stood quietly behind her. Seeing the exhaustion in her eyes, his heart ached. He wanted to speak, but feared any comfort would feel like a burden. Finally, he said gently, "If you let me, I'll try to win that client back, not as the man who hurt you, but as your partner in this work." Isabel looked up, surprised by his shift to you instead of the formal miss. His sincerity disarmed her defenses, if only briefly. Andrew acted swiftly. He arranged a meeting with the client at a small office without secretaries or assistants. He patiently explained that IR Couture wasn't a PR tool, but Isabel's heartfelt creation. He shared growth metrics and her past struggles. The client remained cautious, but didn't confirm the cancellation. Andrew returned, recounting every detail to Isabel, leaving nothing out. "I did this," he said, "not to prove I'm intelligent or powerful, but to show I'm fighting for your dream." That night, Isabel couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Today's Andrew was worlds apart from the arrogant man of years past. But was his change genuine or a well-acted performance? She stepped onto the balcony, the night breeze brushing her hair. The city below glowed its car horns, blending with the ceaseless pulse of life. Her trust felt like a flickering lamp, one strong gust away from going out. Am I letting my heart lead instead of my head? She wondered. A week later, the scandal hadn't faded. A popular blogger posted a spliced video implying Andrew was using the savior of a young designer narrative to boost his image. Thousands of comments erupted, some pitying Isabel, others mocking her. In the studio, Isabel stared at the glowing screen, feeling the world against her. In a moment of weakness, she blurted, "Maybe you should leave, Andrew. I don't want my brand buried because of you." The room fell silent. Andrew froze, but didn't lash out. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "If that's what you want, I'll go. But know this, I never thought you needed me to succeed. You're strong enough to stand alone. I only hoped one day you'd believe I'm here to give, not take." With that, he left the studio, leaving a cold void behind. Isabel sank to the floor, tears streaming. Candace hugged her, whispering, "You don't need him to succeed. But the question is, does your heart really want him gone?" Isabel didn't answer. She wept silently, knowing her trust was more fragile than ever. Since Andrew left the studio, the space felt eerily quiet. Gone was the sight of the man hauling heavy fabric rolls, his warm voice mingling with the hum of the sewing machine. Candace noticed the change in her friend. Isabel kept working steadfastly, but her eyes betrayed an unmasked void. She buried herself in new designs, her pencil moving faster than ever, as if pausing briefly would let the emptiness consume her. One morning, the press struck again with a vicious article, "Can the young brand survive without its secret backer?" The blazing headline stabbed at Isabel's heart. The words dismissed her efforts, painting Andrew as the mastermind, and her as a puppet propped up to polish a tycoon's humanitarian image. Candace slammed the table in fury. "We can't let them write whatever they want." But Isabel quietly folded the paper. Her voice was hoarse. "The media's stronger than we think. Fighting head-on will only make it worse." Meanwhile, Andrew vanished completely. No calls, no messages. His silence left Isabel reeling. Had she been too harsh, or had he walked away to avoid the mess? That night she wrote in her journal, "He said he'd prove it with actions." Is silence an action, or just the most straightforward way out? The page soaked up her tears. A week later, Candace received a special invitation. IR Couture was invited to a fundraising gala for homeless children attended by prominent entrepreneurs and artists. The surprise, Andrew Harris was the organizer. Isabel froze at the news. Her heart wavered between hope and doubt. Was this another publicity stunt? Candace looked at her gently. "Maybe he wants to help. You should go. It's a chance for the brand to shine positively." Isabel was silent for a long moment, then nodded faintly. At the gala, the ballroom glowed with crystal chandeliers. Glittering gowns filled the opulent space. Isabel arrived in her own design, a deep crimson dress, fitted and bold, radiating strength and pride. As she entered, dozens of eyes turned her way, some admiring, others scrutinizing. Andrew stood at the podium, his voice resonant yet unpretentious. "Tonight isn't about profit or fame. It's about opportunity for children to have a home, a future. I pledge to double the funds raised tonight. And I want to introduce a special partner, a designer who's inspired me with her resilience and belief, Isabel Robinson." The room buzzed. A spotlight snapped onto Isabel. She stood rooted, heart pounding. This was the moment Andrew had promised proof through action. But was she ready to step forward? Candace squeezed her hand. "Go. This is your stage." Isabel walked to the podium, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. Hundreds of eyes followed. Andrew stepped back, giving her the floor. She took a deep breath and spoke. "I'm not here to talk about myself, but about those who've never been seen. Fashion isn't about the spotlight. It's a mirror to help people recognize their worth. And just like the children, we all deserve a chance to shine." Thunderous applause filled the room. Some stood, their eyes glistening with emotion. In that moment, Isabel felt the power of her voice, no longer the girl trembling at criticism, but a woman sure of her value. When the event ended, The donations exceeded all expectations. Reporters swarmed not to gossip about scandals, but to praise IR Couture turns runways into bridges for the community, from small stitches to a grand mission. In the crowd, Isabel caught Andrew's gaze. There was no dominance, only quiet pride. He approached and said softly that I promised to prove it with actions. This is just the start. Isabel's heart stirred. Much of her doubt melted away. He didn't need to say more. Organizing this event was proof enough. Leaving the venue, Isabel stood under a starry sky. The night breeze carried a warmth rekindling her trust. Candace joined her, grinning. See, not every door needs to stay closed. Maybe this time he really wants to stay. Isabel didn't reply, only smiled faintly. Deep down, she admitted her fragile trust was beginning to heal. But to fully open that door, she needed more time and more actions from Andrew. One thing was sure: tonight had changed everything. Not just for her, but for IR Couture. Back in her apartment, Isabel opened her notebook. She wrote, I stood before a crowd today and felt no fear. I saw a man who once hurt me stand beside me, not to steal the light, but to lift me higher. This may be the true beginning. She set down her pen, exhaling softly. Outside, the city lights twinkled. In Isabel's heart, a flame of trust burned, not flickering, but brighter than ever. After the fundraising gala, the studio's atmosphere transformed. Praise replaced mocking rumors. Fashion outlets hailed IR Couture as a phenomenon. Fashion for the community, a young brand redefining beauty standards. Isabel read each article, her heart swelling with pride, yet heavy with thought. She knew Andrew's quiet contributions played a significant role. Instead of stealing the spotlight as a backer, he chose to stand in the shadows, letting it shine on her. From then on, Andrew rarely appeared publicly with Isabel. Behind the scenes, though, he worked tirelessly. When a Paris shipment got stuck at customs, he stayed up all night, calling international contacts, resolving the issue before customers could complain. The next morning, Isabel found him asleep at the studio's desk, his suit rumpled. She quietly draped a thin blanket over his shoulders. When Andrew stirred, their eyes met silently enough to make her heart tremble. Candace, ever perceptive, noticed the shift. One evening alone in the studio, she teased, "Are you sure he's just a business partner?" Isabel blushed, pretending to focus on her sketches. "I don't want to talk about it. There's too much work to do." Candace laughed, but let it drop. She knew her friend was softening, just not ready to admit it. That fall, IR Couture was invited to a show in Los Angeles, the brand's first venture beyond New York. Andrew offered to join to handle logistics. On the flight, they sat side by side. Outside, endless white clouds stretched across the sky. Andrew leaned closer, his voice warm. "I know you're still keeping your distance. I'm not rushing you. I want you to know that whenever you look back, I'll be here." Isabel turned, meeting his sincere gaze. She stayed silent, but a door in her heart creaked open. The Los Angeles show was a triumph. Afterward, the team celebrated at a lively gathering. Amid the upbeat music, Isabel and Andrew slipped away, walking along the beach. Waves crashed softly, the air carrying the ocean's salty tang. Andrew stopped, facing her. "Isabel, I can't change the past, but I want to build a different present with you." Her heart raced, torn between trust and fear. She recalled the time she'd been belittled, the wounds still raw. "Are you sure this isn't just guilt?" she asked softly. Andrew shook his head. "If it were guilt, I'd have left long ago. I'm here not to atone, but because I genuinely want to walk beside you." Under the moonlight, his words rang with a sincerity Isabel couldn't deny. She didn't respond. She only continued walking, brushing his hand. Andrew didn't grasp it tightly, just walked in step, respecting her pace. But their budding connection faced an immediate test. A tabloid published a story, Romance Between Tycoon and Designer, Truth or Marketing Ploy. A candid photo of them on the beach spread across social media. Candace fumed. "They'll never leave you alone." Isabel stayed silent, her heart wavering again. She feared her efforts would be overshadowed, reduced to the woman beside Andrew Harris. Andrew sensed her anxiety. He organized a small press conference, but gave the stage to Isabel instead of speaking. Before dozens of reporters, she declared, "IR Couture was built by my hands, and the team who believed in this mission. Andrew Harris's presence isn't a crutch. It's part of a journey I chose to share. If you write about me, write about the work, about the women who find confidence in my dresses." Her words were quoted everywhere. Isabel didn't shy from public scrutiny for the first time, but faced it head-on. To her surprise, the public rallied behind her, calling her a woman who claims her own voice. Back at the hotel that evening, Isabel saw Andrew on the balcony, city lights casting a glow on his face. "You know," she said softly earlier, "for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the gossip." Andrew turned a smile flickering. "That's all I've ever wanted, for you to believe in yourself, not because of me, but because of you." In that quiet moment, the walls of her defenses crumbled. She stepped closer, whispering, "Maybe. I'm starting to trust." Andrew didn't reply, only gently took her hand. No grand promises were needed. This moment spoke volumes. They both understood a mature love was forming, not born of blind passion, but of respect and shared trials. That night, the ocean waves rolled steadily and city lights twinkled. In Isabel's heart, something shifted. She knew storms lay ahead, but for the first time she no longer felt alone. The buzz around the tycoon designer romance refused to die down. Candid photos, speculative articles, and baseless edited videos flood the internet daily. Some cheered, some admired, but many sneered. Certain partners grew wary, fearing IR Couture was merely a romantic shadow tied to Andrew Harris. Instead of focusing on products, business meetings were hijacked by questions about their personal relationship. Candace fumed. "You can't keep staying silent like this. They'll think you're dodging, and that's as good as admitting the rumors." Isabel sat quietly. Her heart had softened toward Andrew, but her mind remained cautious. She didn't want love to become an excuse for others to dismiss her efforts. One evening, Andrew arrived at the studio, placing a folder gently on the table. "These are all my contracts and investment proposals for IR Couture. If you want, I'll cancel them all. You owe me nothing. I need you to know I'm here to walk with you, not control you." Isabel flipped through the pages, seeing his signature, ready to step back if she chose. The gesture shook her. A man once arrogant, always seeking dominance, now willingly lets go of power. "Aren't you afraid of losing everything?" she asked softly. Andrew met her gaze. "I'm only afraid of losing you." The simple words crumbled the last walls in Isabel's heart. Weeks later, IR Couture was invited to New York Fashion Week, the industry's most prestigious event. It was a golden opportunity, but also a massive challenge. This year's lineup featured top-tier brands, and IR Couture's presence would be scrutinized intensely. Isabel knew this was a make-or-break moment. Her brand would be recognized or dismissed as a fleeting fad. She and her team worked tirelessly. Andrew didn't stand idly by. He joined meetings, handled logistics, and secured sponsors. Unlike before, he avoided the press, ensuring all attention stayed on Isabel. Lincoln Center's lights blazed on opening night, with hundreds of camera lenses trained on the runway. IR Couture's dresses appeared not concealing real bodies, but celebrating every curve. Models walked confidently, and the audience fell silent momentarily before erupting in thunderous applause. At the finale, Isabel stepped out to bow. The entire room stood. Even the harshest critics nodded in approval. She knew then that this was no longer a young brand, but a new voice in the industry. In the front row, Andrew watched his eyes shining. This time, Isabel didn't look away. She walked to him, taking his hand in front of hundreds of cameras. The room exploded with cheers. The next morning, major outlets published the image. But instead of mockery, they celebrated love and fashion, a story of respect and partnership. IR Couture claims its place not in anyone's shadow, but alongside the one she loves. Isabel read each line her heart light. The tides of public opinion could shift, but this moment was real and witnessed by the world. Andrew took Isabel to a rooftop garden as the city lit up one late evening. Amid twinkling lights, a small table held candles and a simple bouquet. He took her hand. "Isabel, I once had everything but felt empty. Meeting you taught me what it means to care for something honestly. I'm not promising to be perfect, but I promise to be here tomorrow." He pulled a small box from his pocket, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. "Will you walk with me, not just in work, but in life?" Tears welled up and Isabel nodded. Andrew's smile lit up as he held her hand tightly. The painful past dissolved in that moment, leaving only a sweet present and a hopeful future. Their wedding was intimate, not lavish, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and those who'd supported them. No celebrity guests or endless banquet tables. Just laughter, tears, and heartfelt blessings. Isabel wore a dress she designed not starlet glamorous, but elegant and meaningful. As she walked down the aisle, Andrew's eyes never left her. He knew she wasn't just his bride, but the woman who taught him to love through respect. IR Couture continued to grow. But what brought Isabel joy wasn't new contracts or glowing articles. It was the letters from customers worldwide. "Thanks to you, I dared to wear a wedding dress. My daughter smiled in the mirror. I feel seen." Those words were her most outstanding achievement. Andrew often teased, "Investing in this brand was like investing in your heart, and I've earned a 1,000-fold return." Isabel laughed, her eyes sparkling with happiness. One evening they sat on a balcony, city lights glowing below. Isabel leaned her head on Andrew's shoulder, whispering, "I used to think I had to shrink to be loved. Real love doesn't ask me to diminish it, lets me be me." Andrew squeezed her hand, replying softly, "And that's why I love you." As the breeze swept through, the sleepless city hummed. But for Isabel, everything quieted. The man who once hurt her had become her anchor, not through empty promises, but steadfast actions. And for Isabel, that was true happiness.